Hello and welcome to Reality TV News Update, where you'll find the most recent news, entertaining moments, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Anthony Hutton has been participating in the Stable program on Teesside for the past 6 months. The Big Brother winner will present his men's mental health project to investors at a Dragon's Den-style event. Anthony Hutton hit rock bottom after blowing all of his money within 5 years of winning the reality TV show in 2005 at the age of 23. The 45-year-old, who is from Consett, County Durham, became a celebrity overnight and began raking in hundreds of thousands of pounds. He found himself mixing with celebrities as well as footballers. However, by the time he was 28, the spotlight faded and the cash dwindled. He found himself struggling to pay the mortgage on his 4-bedroom townhouse in Newcastle and had to move back in with his grandma, Mary Hutton. When Mary died in 2022, aged 84, following a long battle with ovarian cancer, he told those at her funeral that she never threw in the towel and did everything she could to keep living. Anthony, who is now married to solicitor Sophie, 39, and father to Cruz, 4, Xander, 1, and Shiloh, 16 weeks, told Chronicle Live that he wanted to turn his mess into a message. He took inspiration from his fall from fame and the power of his grandma's eulogy to create the Never Throw in the Towel project, which aims to fight against and tackle male suicide. He said, "I had my challenges from transitioning back from Big Brother. That lived experience of experiencing difficult times is mine. I was 28, approaching my 30s, and I had friends who had careers. My best friend had a wife and kids, and I was back at home in the bedroom I grew up in with no direction. I thought, how have you managed to mess up so much? There needs to be more events like this because suicide is the leading cause of death among men under the age of 50. The world of today is full of difficulties." The father of 3 now hosts a podcast in which he tells stories of hope and organizes meetups and retreats about men's mental health. He wants the project to grow and make an impact nationwide. For the last 6 months, Anthony has been taking part in the Stable program. It operates on Teesside and aims to support and champion entrepreneurs with early-stage startups. On Tuesday, March 24, he will showcase his vision for the project and the progress he has made in front of investors. The demo day will take place at the Riverside Stadium in Middlesbrough. Anthony, who now lives in Darlington, said, "They help you develop your idea to a stage where you have got it finished, and then the finale is at the end of the program. They put a lot of investors in front of you, and you have to pitch your product. I'm feeling excited. I speak for a living, but there will be nerves when something is important to you and means a lot to you. It is absolutely true to my faith. I've saw the impact of what you can get from the community. The fundamentals of health are everything. When I work with people who are having problems with their mental health, the most common thing I see is people not doing the fundamentals." Chronicle Live has created a dedicated WhatsApp community for County Durham news. You can join this WhatsApp community here. It will keep you up to date with County Durham news as it breaks, sent directly to your phone. The room buzzed with a quiet intensity. Half anticipation, half nerves, as a dozen entrepreneurs adjusted their notes, rehearsed their pitches under their breath, and stared down the long table where a panel of investors would soon take their seats. It was a high-stakes arena similar to Dragon's Den, where ideas could fly or sink in a matter of minutes. But for one contestant, the pitch was about far more than profit margins or market share. A recent Big Brother winner, James Carter, stood near the back of the room with his hands tightly encircling a small notebook. Unlike the others, his product wasn't something you could hold or demonstrate with a flashy prototype. It was something far more personal, and he believed far more urgent. James had been getting ready for this moment for months. After emerging victorious from the reality show spotlight, he could have taken the usual path: brand deals, appearances, easy money. But instead, he chose something different, something harder.
He wanted to talk about men's mental health. The project he was about to pitch, called Open Circle, was a platform designed to connect men in safe, moderated spaces, both online and offline, where they could talk openly about their struggles. It combined digital tools with community-based meetups, guided by trained facilitators and supported by mental health professionals. Breaking the silence that far too often surrounds men's emotional lives was the simple idea's profound goal. As the event host welcomed everyone and introduced the panel of investors, James took a deep breath. The weight of what he was about to share, not competition pressure, was what was making his heart pound. When his name was called, the room seemed to narrow. He walked forward, each step steady but deliberate, and faced the panel. Although there weren't as many cameras rolling as in the Big Brother house, the scrutiny felt just as intense. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough," declares James. He paused, scanning the faces of the investors. Some leaned forward with interest, others remained neutral, waiting. He went on to say, "Men's mental health is in crisis. Despite their disproportionately high rate of suicide, men worldwide are significantly less likely to seek mental health support. That's not because men don't feel pain, it's because they're often taught not to express it." The room changed in a subtle way. This wasn't a typical pitch. James increased his confidence as he moved closer. "After winning Big Brother, I received thousands of messages. Not just congratulations, messages from men who felt seen, who related to moments where I opened up about anxiety, about pressure, about feeling like I had to hold it together. And one thing was clear from those messages: there is a huge void, and people are desperate to fill it." He proceeded to the following slide by clicking, which featured a simplified Open Circle app interface. An app mock-up. "Open Circle is designed to make vulnerability accessible," he explained. "Users can join moderated discussion groups, access mental health resources, and participate in weekly Circle sessions, safe, structured conversations led by trained facilitators. Think of it as a hybrid between a support group and a digital community." The eyebrows of one of the investors were raised. "There are already mental health apps out there," she said. "What makes yours unique?" James nodded as if anticipating the inquiry. "You're right, there are many apps, but most are built around individual use: journaling, meditation, self-help modules. Connection is at the heart of Open Circle. We're not asking men to fix themselves alone. We're giving them a space to talk, to listen, and to realize they're not alone." He clicked once more, bringing up early pilot data. "We ran a small beta with 150 participants over 3 months. Engagement rates were over 80%. More importantly, 67% of users reported that it was the first time they had spoken openly about their mental health." Now the room was quieter. Even the investors, who had appeared skeptical, were nodding. James took a breath, then leaned into the most personal part of his pitch. "This isn't just an idea for me, it's personal. Before Big Brother, I struggled in silence for years. I believed that asking for help showed weakness. I believed I would have to handle everything on my own." He paused, his voice softening. "And I know I'm not alone in that." No one spoke for a brief moment. His words hung in the air with weight. Then came the numbers: revenue streams, subscription models, partnerships with corporate wellness programs, potential collaborations with mental health organizations. James had completed his assignments. This wasn't just a passion project, it was a scalable business with a clear path forward. "I'm seeking £250,000 in exchange for 15% equity, not just to build a company, but to build a movement." The panel looked at each other. One investor leaned forward, fingers steepled. "You've clearly put a lot of thought into this, and I respect the mission. However, mental health is a delicate subject. How do you ensure safety and credibility?" James nodded. "That's critical. Our programs are designed and managed in collaboration with licensed professionals, and all facilitators receive certified training. We're not replacing therapy, we're creating a bridge to it." Another investor spoke up. And your background, how does winning Big Brother prepare you to run this? James had a glint of a smile. It doesn't in the traditional sense, but it gave me something just as valuable, a platform and an understanding of how powerful honest conversations can be. I have assembled a team with expertise in community development, technology, and mental health, so I'm not doing this alone. Sharp, inquisitive, and never-ending went on the questioning, but James stood his ground. He responded to every question with clarity and conviction. Finally, the panel fell silent. In contemplation, the lead investor leaned back. "This is one of the more unusual pitches we've seen," she said. "It's not just about business, impact is what matters." She glanced at her fellow investors, then back at James.
Under the bright lights of a converted warehouse in East London, the air felt thick with anticipation. Rows of chairs filled with entrepreneurs, investors, and media buzzed with quiet conversation. But behind the stage curtain, the atmosphere was something else entirely. Tense, focused, and deeply personal for one man in particular. Daniel Reeves, who had just won Big Brother, adjusted the navy blazer's cuffs and looked down at the tablet in his hands. The glow of the screen reflected a presentation he had revised countless times, slides filled with statistics, user flows, and projections. However, none of that accurately reflected what brought him here. This wasn't just another pitch competition tonight. It was a showdown similar to Dragon's Den, and the founders had just a few minutes to convince a panel of experienced investors to back their ideas or go home empty-handed. It was all about a business opportunity for many. For Daniel, it was about something far more urgent. A production assistant peeked through the curtain. "You're ahead in 2. Daniel gave a nod and exhaled slowly. His thoughts drifted back to the Big Brother house, to the cameras, the pressure, and the times when he almost gave up but chose to be honest. Those moments had defined his journey and, unexpectedly, his future. The flood of messages had been overwhelming after winning, but it wasn't the congratulations that stayed with him. It was the confessions, thousands of them, of men who said that until they saw him talk about their struggles on national television, they had never felt comfortable doing so. Everything had changed after that realization. "Daniel, you're on," a production assistant said. A wall of eager faces and a wash of light greeted him as he entered the stage. 5 investors sat at the far end, each known for their keen senses and critical assessments. They were reluctant to smile. Daniel began with a steady but empathetic tone, saying, "Good evening. I'm here to talk about something that affects millions of men, but is rarely discussed," says Daniel Reeves. The first slide, a stark statistic about male suicide rates, appeared after he clicked the remote in his hand. "Men are significantly less likely to seek help for mental health issues," he continued, "not because they do not require it, but rather because they do not believe they are able to. Men are told by society to be strong, to keep quiet, and to handle things on their own. Additionally, the silence is claiming lives." The room became quiet. Daniel moved into the heart of his pitch. The hybrid platform he created, dubbed Brotherhood, was intended to bridge the gap between isolation and support. It offered peer support networks, moderated group discussions, and access to professional guidance through a mobile app and in-person meetups. He elaborated, "Brotherhood isn't about replacing therapy. It's about making the first step easier. It's about making places for men to talk, both online and offline, where they won't be judged." Leaning forward, one of the investors did so. "We've seen mental health apps before. What makes this investable and scalable?" Daniel nodded, ready. "Most mental health solutions are built for individual use, tracking moods, guided meditations, AI chatbots. They're helpful, but they don't address the core issue for many men, connection. Brotherhood is built around community, partnerships with workplaces, gyms, and sports clubs, places where men already congregate but rarely open up, are how our model expands." He advanced to a slide showing early pilot results.
Over 200 people participated in our 3-month beta. More than half of users reported having their first meaningful conversation about mental health through our platform, and engagement remained above 75%. Another investor crossed her arms. And how do you guarantee security? These are private discussions. Absolutely, Daniel replied. Trained facilitators moderate each group. When necessary, we provide escalation routes and design our frameworks in collaboration with licensed mental health professionals. Safety isn't a feature, it's the foundation. There was a pause, then a more pointed question. One investor declared, "You've won a reality show. How does that qualify you to lead something like this?" Daniel didn't flinch. "It doesn't, on its own," he admitted, "but it gave me a platform and an insight I wouldn't have had otherwise. I saw firsthand how powerful it can be when someone speaks honestly, and I've built a team around me with the expertise I don't have: clinicians, developers, community leaders. This isn't a solo effort." After taking a deep breath, he turned away from the slides. He said, "I'll be honest with you. Before Big Brother, I struggled in silence. I believed that asking for help showed weakness. I believed I had to carry everything on my own." His tone changed, but it remained steady, and I know that millions of men continue to feel that way. The room was still now, the kind of stillness that comes when something real cuts through the noise. Daniel concluded with the business case, which included subscription tiers, corporate partnerships, and a strategy for long-term growth. He was asking for £300,000 in exchange for 12% equity. It was a confident ask, backed by both data and purpose. The investors paused and leaned back as he spoke. One of them stated, "This is clearly more than a business to you." Daniel replied, "It is, but I also believe it can be a strong business, and more importantly, a necessary one." The panel began to deliberate, their questions coming faster now, about user acquisition, competition, regulatory risks. Daniel answered each one, drawing on months of preparation and a conviction that never seemed to fade. Finally, the lead investor spoke. She stated, "I think what you're doing matters, but it's also a challenging space. That said, I see the potential." She leaned forward. "I'm willing to invest the full amount, but for 18%. The audience let out a mumble. Before Daniel could respond, another investor jumped in. "I'd like to come in as well. Same valuation, but I want to be involved in scaling your partnerships." Daniel took in the moment by blinking. This wasn't just interest, it was belief. He smiled, a mix of relief and determination. He stated, "Then let's do it. Let's build something that actually changes lives." Applause filled the room as he shook hands with the investors. But even as the noise swelled, Daniel's thoughts were elsewhere. On the messages he had received, the stories he had heard, the men who were still waiting for a space where they could simply say, "I'm not okay," and be heard. Tonight was a win. However, it was primarily a beginning, because pitching an idea was never enough for Daniel. Beginning a conversation that could potentially save lives was the goal.